just look here real quick. Thank you so much.
Stand it up, please.
On the left, please.
Send your head up.
And guys on the left, please. Far left. And the far left, please. Guys together, looking this way, please.
I want to thank Toronto for raising me to love movies.
Hello, hello!
Everyone has a big imagination. All of us do.
This is exciting. My first film to premiere here at the Toronto Film Festival. It's an exciting night.
You are the most globally exciting festival in the world.
Hello and welcome to the press conference for Escobar Paradise Lost. A few notes before we begin. This press conference will be streamed live at www.tiff.net, and still photographs will be made available on the TIFF media site. Volunteers with microphones are in the room to assist you with your questions. Please remember to identify yourself and your media outlet. Please also note that there's no photography permitted during this press conference. Only the pre-approved wire services may take photographs, and we ask that you do so from behind the first row. Lastly, if you can take a moment to turn your cell phones to silent. Our moderator for today's session is Henri Behar, and it is now my pleasure to welcome the director and cast for Escobar Paradise Lost. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the press conference for Escobar Paradise Lost. And all of you, of course, you've seen the film, so you know what it's about. But for the benefit of the people who are watching us on television, as this is streamed live, I'll try and sum it up as quickly as I can. It's all Maria's fault, you see. She's too beautiful. Therefore, Charlie, sitting next to her, falls madly in love with her, not knowing at the time that her uncle is the kingpin of drugs bar none, Mr. Escobar. So, as Maria, Claudia Tresac, as Charlie, Josh Hutchins.
As Nick.
Nick, okay.
You can call him Charlie if you want to, but
All right,
maybe
Nick.
that's his nickname, yeah.
Nick, my mistake, sorry.
It's okay, no worries.
Josh Hutchison, and as Escobar, Benicio del Toro. Now, the man sitting next to me put it all together. This is his directorial debut. He's an actor. We've seen him in Nine, a musical. We've seen him in Eat, Pray, Love. We also saw him in The Life of Pi, Mr. Andrea Di Stefano. So, the first question is addressed to you, Mr. Di Stefano. How come you chose this, or this project came to you as a directorial debut? And since you were an actor, did you not contemplate this project as a vehicle for yourself?
No. I learned the story that is partially inspired by a true story from a friend of mine who works as an undercover cop, and he met this person that thought he was a friend of Pablo Escobar, and somehow Pablo Escobar asked him to hide something and then tried to kill him. And I thought that story somehow, right away I saw the potential of telling the story of a Greek tragedy. I saw also something that interested me was the criminal dynamic of this man that were different from the rules of criminal figures, because they don't have laws, they have rules, and he was going against one of the main rules of criminality, is that you don't betray your close people. And then there is something mythological about this story that I was immediately drawn to. And beside that, then you decide to write a story and you put a lot of your fears and obsessions inside of it. And I told something that I thought was also intimate to me. The story of Nick is something that I felt very close to. As far as finding this, vehicle for myself, no, I think that it's already complicated to be behind the camera, and I never had the idea of acting in the film. At which point did Benicio come into play? Were you there earlier on at the beginning, Benicio, or just at the last minute?
None of the above.
Okay. No, Benicio was right away my, from very, very soon, we sent him the script, and it's a very complicated role. I think it took some time. It took 2 years before we really could make it concrete. But no, it was a process. It took 5 years from the moment I wrote the script to shoot it. So it was a very long process. And did the script change because of perhaps the actor's input, or at least this one, in the process during those 5 years, or did it stay as it was?
Yeah, I think it changed. It changed a little bit. I mean, when I first read the script, I read it, I think like a year before we made it. I read the script, and yeah, it definitely it was a little longer when we first had it. We trimmed it down some and everything, but yeah, I think that kind of just once Andrea sort of we met and sort of talked about the character and stuff. I know that he did like some changes to the story a little bit, but yeah, not too much really. I think Andrea from the beginning. That's the thing. When I read the script, I loved it so much, and I love the character of Nick, and I love the world of Escobar, and I thought that kind of the going into this whole world through Nick was a really kind of a great way into this story. So I connected with that right away.
No, what else? I believe that a script is just literature to sell a story to investors and producers. Then to make a movie is something completely different. You're there with actors, human beings. Their talent was really the most inspiring thing for me to work with once I was on the set. I mean, it's nothing more important once the film starts rolling to get real things happening. And if you stick too much to a script, I think that never happens.
Question 1 here, question 2 here. Okay, then Mr. Kirkland in front of you. Go ahead. Yes?
Hi, thank you. One Isabel Inclán from Notimex, Mexico. The question for Benicio and for Andrea. What do you think about the legalization of drugs trafficking? Do you think that could be could help to reduce the violence around cartels in countries in Latin America?
Yes. I think it would reduce violence, yes. I mean, it's a process. I think it's maybe not every drug, but it's a complicated, very complicated question. But I think it would, personally, I think that it would definitely reduce violence. But it's a very complicated question that I'm not qualified to sit here and
that's above our pay grade.
Yeah, I need to get paid a lot of money to answer that question.
Question here, then here.
CH News. This question's for Benicio. I've read that you're the only actor alive who could play Pablo Escobar. So what is important to you to get across in this role?
What was important?
What was important?
Don't believe everything you read. But what's the question? Like,
what elements of Pablo was important for you to get across?
Well, you know, for me, what I found interesting in Andrea's script was that, and something that we talked about was that it's a fictionalized story, but I thought that that it was very interesting that many things in the story, in Pablo's story, is based on truth. And I thought it was important, even though, you know, that we would ground aspects of what we know about Escobar. make it truthful, you know. And I thought that was the thing that drew me to try to interpret this character, was basically the fact that a lot of the things that we see in the script are based on truth. And the angle of maybe Pablo the politician.
Question here, and the lady.
Yes, Bruce Kirkland from the Toronto Sun Media in Canada. This actually picks up on what you were just talking about. So, but this is a question for all three actors, because this is world that your director has created is a world that we think we know something about, as in a piece of history, and that Pablo Escobar, you know, he's a master criminal. He was a crazy man, a sociopath. But he was also a human being, and he was considered a kind of a Robin Hood to the poor people of Colombia. And so this is a world of high criminality and real complexity. And entering it through this fictional story, I'm curious how each of you related to it and how you came to learn maybe a different perspective on the true story of Escobar.
Yeah, I mean, my character Nick was fictional, so I didn't have like a real historical piece of the story. However, yeah, I think it was cool because Nick got to come into this world with a fresh perspective, something the audience doesn't even have, because the audience has all the baggage of what Pablo was and what we know him as today as the public, but Nick had no idea. Nick was this naive, pure guy that was going to have a surfing trip with his brother and then falls in love pure and then meets a girl who's pure, and all of a sudden he's part of this world that is not so pure. So kind of the slow introduction of evil is something I think that Andrea really wanted to hit on, and about what evil can do to something that's so like pure and beautiful. And I think that for me it was just a cool perspective for the audience to get to see, because you sort of see the story through Nick's eyes, and you see that how Pablo could manipulate these people, because he would make them feel like family. He would show them this beautiful world and how he takes care of his family, and like you're all a part of this really beautiful thing, and he's giving stuff to the community. So when you see that and you don't know the inner workings behind it all, you can really be bamboozled into thinking that he's this loving, nice guy, and then he goes and does what he does. And you know, I think it's a cool way to kind of get into the story.
You see your character was fictional.
Yeah.
Is Denise fictional? Does she exist? Is there a picture of Maria, or that's also a fictional character?
No, I read the story of this niece of Pablo called Pelo Lindo from the book of the brother, and I thought it was a very interesting character because she, in the description of the brother, was somebody very close to Pablo, and one day after one of the bombs exploded in Bogota, she went up to Pablo while he was in prison and smacked him in front of his men. And I thought that this character was interesting. It was a young girl of 20 years old. So I never saw a picture of her, but this story inspired me to write the story of Maria. The scene at the stadium when Maria asks him why, it was really, to me, the archetype of somebody. You know, I wanted to tell the story of somebody who suddenly faces reality, and also what she says in the film is also inspired by interviews of the sisters of Pablo, and when they say, you know, there was an interview of the sister when she says, everybody chewed coca leaves in Colombia, he's just exporting a national product. It was the naivete of the family surrounding him that also interests me. They all agreed he was a great father, was a great family man, and in years now, I mean, what the recent interviews I read, they finally facing the double sides of this man.
Well, the fact that you two are playing fictional character, did that make it sort of easier for you to just create the visual of this character, as opposed to Benicio, who we have pictures of Escobar just and television and film clips galore? Was it easier for you, Claudia?
Yeah, I think for me was he was like the idol of Maria. Like he was he made this family, and she felt really protected by him, and she was able to work with the poor communities because of him. So for her, it was kind of like a god, and like a goal for her, and I think that's what the Colombian people was feeling in that moment, because he was really good with the people, but then he has this dark side, and I think she discovered this at the same time as the Colombian people. And that was the interesting part, to be like pure about him, and be like really like feel the admiration for him, and then discover that he's not the person that I thought he was.
Yeah, and I think too also just about, it's absolutely easier. Well, it's different. It's different is the truth, because I mean, if you at least have somebody that you can look to and say, I wanna, or there's a person that you wanna be like. I mean, I could see there are benefits to that, but it can also be confining, I think. But for me, I mean, I got, and for Claudia too, we got to create characters, which was cool, and we got to, which in a way is hard, but it's also, it's just different, really, because I think when you create something original, you have to put more into it that wasn't already there. But at the same time, you aren't confined by having to try to have these gestures or trying to mimic a certain look. So it's like just different, I think.
As for you, Benicio, I mean, you've done Che before, so I don't know. You have,
I
different approaches. I don't know.
No, I think that they're both hard when it's fiction or nonfiction. Perhaps they're, and then every character that you do, no matter what, is fiction.
Well, that's one way of looking.
So
at
there's
it.
fiction, and nonfiction fiction.
Okay, you guys decipher that.
Yeah.
Okay, the lady here, and then second row.
Hello, everybody. My name is Laura Hernandez. I'm from Colombia, actually. So for me, it's pretty interesting to see this movie. Of course, it's a very hard topic for us. It's really hard to get some parts of the movie. And I wanted to ask you, Andrea, and of course, Benicio as well, about the research for the movie. I know you guys included some of the actual facts. I saw footage from La Bonilla and real things happening in there. And don't get me wrong, but sometimes I felt that the movie was out of context. Maybe it's because I'm Colombian. Of course, I understand it's Nick's perspective. But why didn't shoot the movie in Medellin and Utuango, in all those beautiful, I don't know, Colombian scenes that are telling the truth story?
Well, complicated to answer all of that. When I was decided to write the film, the first question I had to answer was, which is the point of view of the story? And I decided to do an exterior point of view, put the camera of someone that was spying on Pablo. It was very important for me to get the intimacy of this man, because I am not a documentarist. And I would have loved, if I was a documentarist, to make a documentary on Pablo. But I had to tell I'm interested in telling the narrative arc of these human beings. And I'm interested in telling, to make justice on this character, the intimate aspects, the dark side, which was humongous, and the brighter side of Pablo with his family and his kids. And I knew that the narrative arc of Nick facing the absolute horror of this man would make justice to who really Pablo Escobar was. Because I think, there was an attempt of making a TV show on Pablo Escobar, but I think that every time you put the camera on him and make him the protagonist, somehow there is something romantic about it. And I wanted the public to feel what one victim of Pablo might have felt when Pablo went after him. In fact, if you see in the film, it's especially through the whole film, you see the result of Pablo's violence. You see people shooting and then dead bodies. I didn't want to romanticize that. You never see live killing in the film. You see people shooting and you see bodies immobile on the ground. The only time you see somebody shooting live in the film is when the protagonist kills. Like a pure soul, he's brought to that extreme by the violence of Pablo. And I think, you know, for sure, if I made a 4 hours film, I would have loved to explore other aspects of his life. But I think I wanted to make a journey into the hell of what meant to be against a person like Pablo Escobar. And as far as shooting in Colombia, it's something that, you know, we would have loved to do that, but they weren't the condition at that moment to do it.
Question in second row here, then first in front of you, and then you.
Astrid Reen, I work for the International Newswire DPA. First question is for Benicio del Toro. There's also been a TV series based on Escobar's life, who's been very successful, and now is this movie, and I wanted to know, why do you think his figure is so attractive, and still it's always attractive for the audience? And then I wanted to ask the director if you had any echoes or, from Pablo Escobar's family, because his son and his wife, for example, I mean, they live in Argentina, and I wanted to know if they say you heard from them or something because of the movie.
The reason why people are attracted to a story like that is it's a better question for an anthropologist. I think people have been attracted to characters that go against the law, and since the beginning of film. And then if you even go back, it starts with what? Hummer. Yeah. You know, so I don't know why people are attracted to that. But it's a fact. You know, it's a gangster movies. You know, perhaps one of the most successful movies is Scarface, the Al Pacino version. I mean, you go anywhere still, and it feels like the movie came out last year. So I don't know, but I think I think part of it has to do with the fact that we get to experience vertigo without really standing on the edge of a building.
The Escobar family was a great inspiration through the writing process. I saw their interviews. I read the book of the sister, the brother. I saw the documentary of the son. It was a great inspiration to get into Pablo's intimacy, especially in the first part of the film, how I would tell the house. And everything you see in the film is really inspired by true things I read about him. And it was a very long process to get into Pablo's life. It took me like 2 years of research before I started really writing the script. I never had, it was my goal to respect that aspect of him, because when you talk to the son, you talk to the sister, the wife, they all describe him, yes, as a criminal outside the house, but as the best father and as the best husband, and the atmosphere at the house was a loving atmosphere. So it was my goal to respect that side of him.
I can say one thing. I think for me, like, as far as a perspective of why I think it's so interesting, the character of Pablo, I think it's because of exactly that. I think he's like it's like he's such a contradiction. He has this incredible love and care for his family, but then he can also dispose of certain people in such a horrendous way and a manipulative way. I think that's intriguing to understand a mind like that, because it's hard to. You can't. He's like a real sociopath or whatever he is. You know, I think it's like it's interesting to try to get in the mind of a character like that can take such good care of his family and the close people around him, and then go and turn right around and put him on a plane with a bomb, and like, you know, like without thinking twice about it. And that's like an intriguing thing, I think, in human nature. Hello?
Try and speak in between. Okay. Try and go ahead.
City. The question is for Benicio. Well, I'm not really. Do I keep? Hold a second, maybe?
Yeah. welcome to Canada. Is there a repeat to this? Okay, anybody's got a deck of cards here? Okay, let's try and give it a try. No.